I am the arouser of divine union, of Eros Cosmos. I bring line and circle together in myself. I bring all my split of parts into union. I bring everything back to center. And I'm doing we call the Shem Yehud, for the sake of the union of the divine masculine and the divine feminine.
Welcome, everyone, to the heart of the revolution. It is with deep joy that we are together today in one mountain, many paths. Our mission is what Barbara Marx Hubbard and Dr. Marc Gafni call a planetary awakening in love through unique self-symphonies. We are activating a new humanity and awakening as a new species. Homo Amor, the fulfillment of Homo sapiens. As a church, a synagogue, a temple, a mosque, a zendo, no one is excluded, everyone is included, and we come together to attune to the evolutionary impulse awakening within us. Welcome home, everyone. I am Christina Tahel, the co-executive producer, along with Krista Josefa, Jacqueline Clark, and Jamie Long, and we are so delighted to be together with each and every one of you for our 412th Evolutionary Global Gathering. Wow, what a tremendous privilege it continues to be held within this evolutionary community and to support, be intimate with, and to work for all of life's flourishing. On Zoom and on Facebook, say hello. Let us know where you're from in the chat box, and do check on Zoom that your chat settings say everyone. We use the chat box during the course of things to resonate the Dharma, to speak our questions, our prayers, these sorts of things. What to expect today? First, an announcement, and then I will give a recap from last week's One Mountain, Many Paths. And then Jacqueline will set our intention. And then David Aiton will resonate the evolutionary love code. And then we will move into our evolutionary sense making with Kerstin and Jacqueline, and who will also take us into prayer. And to close, Krista will invite us deeper into community, and we will bring everyone on for a short dance practice and our goodbyes. Announcement. Starting this coming Saturday, next week, Saturday, and we were all just talking about this course. It really is going to be a fabulous space. It's a parallax course with Dr. Marc Gafni and Dr. Zachary Stein. Value is real. Why saying this may save our civilization and our souls. The course is indeed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity designed not only for philosophers, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, influential professionals, medical experts, scientists, and policymakers, but also for any individual who cares deeply about the future of humanity. It takes place in September on all the Saturdays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time and 5:30 p.m. Central European Time. Dr. Marc and Dr. Zach will engage participants in a series of dialogues at the edges of human knowledge, where there is a dance between the languages of science and the sacred, and between the lineages of ancient wisdom and our living memory of the future. The course is based on the book First Principles and First Values, 42 propositions on cosmoerotic humanism, the meta-crisis, and the world to come. If you don't already have a copy of the book, you can order it on audio or in paperback on Amazon. And also, as you're reading the book or when you finish, do add your voice into the symphony of this revolution by writing a review for the book on Amazon. Thank you. I welcome all who are new. If this is your first time, these teachings do stand on their own, and yet every week does build on the previous week's teaching. So we encourage you to explore our books in the Great Library and to listen on YouTube, to read on Medium and Substack platforms. We also have some great conversation going on Substack, so you definitely want to check that out. And yeah, so please step in evermore. And the link is in the chat box now for some of that. So, One Mountain, Many Paths is radically committed to telling the new universe story. And now for my recapitulation from last week's August symphony. The path of unique self-emergence, the bridge between the new story and embodiment, with Claire Molinar and David Cicerci. In last week's August Unique Self Symphony, Claire Molinar and David Cicerci introduced unique self-emergence, a powerful process and set of practices designed to bridge the gap between understanding unique self-theory as a new narrative of identity and truly embodying it in our lives. Over the course of One Mountain, they unpacked how unique self is about putting the Dharma into practice so that we transform how we live, breathe, and interact with the world. We explored common paths people take to answer these questions. The first, separate self-response, the pursuit of status, recognition, and external success, which often leaves us feeling unfulfilled and isolated. 2, traditional religious response. While offering structure and community, traditional religions can sometimes restrict our potential with outdated views. 3, alternative spiritual seeker response. The freedom to explore alternative spirituality can lead to superficial engagement and a lack of deeper connection. Claire and David then introduced unique self-emergence as a powerful framework and a set of practices to transcend these limitations. The transformative practices they discussed are 1, activating aliveness, which involves identifying your unique risk by recognizing and embracing our unique risks, gifts, and contributions that are the compass of our most extraordinary life. Transforming the false self by releasing the grip of the false self or our personality shaped by early life conditions and wounding to transform behaviors that inhibit our aliveness. Cultivating compassion by inviting healing for ourselves and others by tapping into the well of outrageous love. And engaging in unique shadow work by illuminating and integrating the shadow aspects of our line and circle qualities based on Dr. Marc Gafni's cutting edge teachings on masculine and feminine polarity, aka lines and circles, for enhanced aliveness and clarity. And accessing the ground of true self by strengthening our connection with source. True self, akin to plugging into the cosmos source of aliveness. Claire and David also dove into discovering meaning, which involves befriending and transcending the separate self by utilizing tools like the Enneagram to understand and transform the habits that keep us separate from the whole. Writing our sacred autobiography so as to rewrite our life story to shine a light on our unique self story, shifting from a pathologized to a mythologized perspective. And then entering into conversation with the cosmos by engaging in practices that align us with the universe's evolutionary impulse and discover our place within it. And then they also dove into another aspect of the Unique Self Emergence course around clarifying purpose, which involves confessing our greatness, which we did a practice around, reflecting on moments of flow and aliveness to connect with our essence and understand our purpose. And then also knowing where we stand by learning to differentiate between the separate self, true self, and unique self to gain clarity on our purpose and direction. And finally, they dove into asking from essence by learning to anchor in true self and seek guidance from the universe to activate our unique selves response ability. These practices offer a structured path to living with greater aliveness, purpose, and meaning, helping all of us move beyond the limitations of traditional and alternative approaches. And I personally have been so moved by this work that I do at some point plan to go through the certification, the Unique Self coaching process. And in closing, I want to encourage you all to seriously consider stepping in, as today is the last day of early bird registration. You can schedule a complimentary discernment call with either Claire or David, who are both close students of Dr. Marc Gafni and lineage holders in the Unique Self Dharma, and brilliantly integrate the cutting edge 21st century psychology with ageless wisdom traditions to facilitate whole person transformation. The course is designed for coaches, therapists, healers, counselors, and those deeply committed to this path of homo amor. And it will absolutely profoundly deepen your impact as you learn how to help others in their life and work and uncover their unique risk and their true contribution to the world, facilitating higher consciousness and making self-realization more accessible to everyone. The program is rooted in the visionary teachings of Dr. Marc Gafni and is the only practice-first certification designed to actualize these teachings. In the process of the Unique Self Emergence, you will receive individual guidance and supervision from experienced unique self coaches. You will work with volunteer clients to hone your skills under expert supervision, and you will join the network of unique self coaches upon successful completion of the program. For more information, and don't miss this opportunity, reach out to David Cicerci, whose email is in the chat box now, or you can go to the website, www.uniqueselfinstitute.com. Thank you. Now, I invite us to more deeply enter into the holy and sacred spaces of one mountain, many paths, and I turn my word to you, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much, Christina, for that beautiful Dharma recap. And thank you, Krista, for leading us in with your chanting. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm absolutely delighted to be here today with my Dharma sister, Kerstin, leading One Mountain. We shall be talking about lines and circles. And if part of you happens to be thinking, oh no, I really want Marc back, well, don't worry. He sends his love and he'll be here next week. So one thing I'd like to point out before we start is that Marc first began teaching about lines and circles back in 2001. And he's continued to teach about them ever since in some version or another. There is a chapter in his book, Mystery of Love, entitled Circle and Line, the Dance of Male and Female, and this has full footnotes. The Mystery School in 2015 was a major lines, circles, and spirals teaching. And of course, the last Eros Mystery School in 2023 was focused on the same topic. And this is exciting information. Within the next few weeks, we shall be publishing a line and circle book. Yay, can't wait for that. So today, beloved Kerstin and I shall be taking you on a journey of exploration, looking at our unique transformation, our own unique tikkun, as we say in the lineage, entering through the door of lines and circles and deepening this particular aspect of unique self-emergence that Claire and David guided us through so beautifully last Sunday. And if you were here, you'll know what I mean. And then following the reading of the code, we shall each share some of our individual personal journey, and we will invite you to reflect on your own life. But here in the intention setting, I will be painting the larger framework. And if you have any questions at all, please paste them in the chat box. And at the end, we can come back and address them all. So in the wisdom of Solomon lineage, the Big Bang is referred to as Sim Sum. It was the moment when, according to Isaac Luria, divinity steps back, empties out, and penetrates the empty space with a shaft, which then manifests reality, the inception of the evolutionary spiral. Lines and circles are therefore the very fabric of cosmos itself. All of reality is the interpenetration of lines and circles. And with that penetration comes an explosion of Eros, new creativity, new possibility. This is what we call Eros Gamos, the divine marriage, which within humankind manifests as Homo Amor, the new human and the new humanity. Now, lines and circles each have their positive expression and their negative expression, and they also impact by their absence, which is kind of interesting. Lines and circles, they pulse and they shimmer within our very beingness, yearning to become spirals. I am called to be, you are called to be, the universe, a love story. The circle is a feminine expression, while the line is a potent masculine image, although both lines and circles are, of course, pre-gender. Characteristics of the circle include communion and allurement, receiving and holding. Circles are egalitarian, every point being at the same distance from the center, and they have depth. There is intimacy. The line, on the other hand, is directional. It divides, it thrusts forward. In a circle, we are face to face, whereas in a line, we are face to back. There is hierarchy. A line is going somewhere. It has direction. It has telos. Lines are about freedom, steadiness, living at the edge. Line and circle qualities exist in both males and females, although they show up differently in each. And we all have a unique configuration of line and circle qualities. Now, the reason I took a few moments to center myself at the beginning was to integrate the desire of the line to impart information, to be going somewhere, and the circle aspect of connection, of deepening, of connection to the whole, to she, to what we call the infinite intimate. And just to share something with you, before each one mountain, we have a team meeting. And at the end, before going live, someone offers a prayer. It's a beautiful practice. And in this way today, Kerstin and I were embraced and held by the team a circle quality as we step out, at least for this week, as the line. So you can perhaps begin to see there are spirals within spirals. Kerstin and I are here each engaging with our own spiral within the spiral of one mountain. Now, what we have to do in order to identify the plot line of our lives is we need to look at how lines and circles are showing up uniquely in my life, uniquely in your life. We need to identify the places, speaking for myself, where I am circling around aimlessly, recreating the same set of circumstances time after time after time, and going nowhere fast. I also need to look at my history, the direction of my life. Where is it going? And our task then is to integrate the line and the circle qualities to create the divine marriage, to evolve the circle and the line into the spiral. Because what reality is demanding from us is our full eros, the complete integration of our lines and circles into the transformation of not only ourselves, but also the whole of reality. And as Marc says so often, the moment is either open or closed. And we can only open it by penetrating it with the total fullness of our being. And this is only achieved through fully becoming the thrust of reality and embracing it with the circle to then reclaim the more supple line at a higher level, through fully embodying the circle and then bisecting it with the line, returning to a more expansive circle, a deeper circle, a circle at a higher level, turning the circle into a spiral. So as I draw this intention setting to a close, I'd just like to end with a very brief sharing, which is when I first started thinking about co-creating this one mountain with Kerstin, I started not once, not twice, but actually 3 times on first drafts. And each time I got stuck very quickly. What I wrote felt pretty dry. It felt dead. And then I woke up, as I do sometimes at about 3:30 in the morning, with the realization that what I'd written was line. It was mostly line. It was the giving of information. But what was missing was my depth, the circle. What I'd written was factual, but I was not actually allowing the line of the Dharma to fully penetrate me so it could be expressed through my unique self, the place from which I can feel the evolutionary desire to penetrate reality and make it more. So actually what I did was I went outside and I gazed up at the sky, and actually it was the most beautiful, wondrous night you could imagine. There was a crescent moon, and I was blessed with a veil of stars. And it was not till this point that I actually started to feel excitement about what I was going to be doing. My feelings of anxiety began to abate. I felt inspired and knew that if I could fully engage with both the line and the circle, something would emerge, something new, something which was beyond the sum of its parts. I realized that she was calling me to be all that I could be, and that I needed to thoroughly prepare and then trust. So thank you. That's the end of the intention setting. And I'm now going to hand my word to Krista.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I can just feel the aliveness of Cosmos pouring through every word that you speak. Thank you so much. Can't wait for more. Just a short invitation. welcoming all of us to feel that thrust of cosmos that we're speaking about here, to feel that in our bodies, and to also enact that, because we're here and we're invited to participate in this revolution, to not just be spectators, but to be actors. And so one way of doing that is participating by co-creating. So if you have some extra time to share, I would love to connect with you and see how we can play together. And you're welcome to send an email to support@onemountainmanypaths.org. And another way to contribute is, of course, by sharing finances. So if you find our Substack, Center for World Philosophy and Religion, you can actually subscribe there for free for a ton of free content, but it's really, really appreciated if you can actually upgrade to paid and help make this revolution happen. Thank you so much. I turn my word to David to read the Evolutionary Love Code.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Jacqueline. I'm so excited about this topic. It's one of my favorites. And so this code is a crystallization of what Jacqueline and Kerstin are going to be sharing about today. So I'll put that in the chat box. And I know it's changed my life to really receive this Dharma, because it applies everywhere here. So here's this week's Evolutionary Love Code. All of reality is lines and circles, all the way up and all the way down. Every moment, in every dimension, every dynamic, every meeting, matter, life, mind, it's all lines and circles. All of that lives in us. I am a unique synergy of lines and circles that create a new emergent. I'll resonate that one more time so we can really feel that. All of reality is lines and circles all the way up and all the way down. Every moment, in every dimension, every dynamic, every meeting, matter, life, and mind, it's all lines and circles. And all of that lives in us. I am, you are, we are a unique synergy of lines and circles that creates a new emergent. With that, I turn my word to you, beloved Kerstin, to bring us inside.
Wow. So thank you so much. So, I mean, the first thing I just want to say is just thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to every one of you. Thank you, beloved David Eitan, for your wonderful resonance of that code. Thank you, Krista Josefa, for the beautiful space you create every week for us through your chanting and for inviting us ever more deeply into community. Thank you, Christina Tahel, for your Dharma recap, taking the exact words of the Dharma and having them come through your unique prism. Thank you, beloved Jacqueline Lilith, for your wonderful intention setting. I couldn't be more pleased than doing this together with you. And I know mostly we're more off screen and it is a bit nerve-wracking to be on this side of the screen, but it's also exciting. So I love doing this. And thank you to our whole team holding us here so beautifully and growing, evolving, and transforming together. That's just such a gift and such a pleasure. And thank you, of course, Dr. Marc Gafni, for your tireless effort in formulating and deepening the Dharma, our understanding of reality, of first principles and first values, of the real, and inviting us all into practicing that every day. That makes such a difference in my life, and you all make such a difference in my life. So one of the reasons I love that distinction between lines and circles so much is because it's so much clearer than what is normally referred to as masculine and feminine. Talking about lines and circles makes it clear that I, as a woman, for example, don't only have to develop my circle qualities, but actually it's about developing both of these qualities and bringing them into a conversation, bringing them into a dance, into a synergy, as the code said. And then, of course, these are geometric forms. And looking at those geometric forms of lines and circles actually make the quality so very, very clear. So as Jacqueline already shared, What a line is, it's penetrating, it has a direction, it has a goal, there's a hierarchy in the line. And the circle, on the other hand, it's about embracing, it's about receiving, it's about being face to face. And in a circle, everybody has the same distance to the center. And there's, of course, also shadow qualities of both lines and circles. So, for example, one of the shadow qualities of a circle is that I can literally place somebody outside the circle. I can literally excommunicate them. Or I can circle around the same issues for years without ever breaking through to the next level, which would need my line quality. A line, on the other hand, can be overly rigid, maybe, or just dissecting without the holding and compassion of the circle. So we need to really watch out for both light and shadow expressions. And we want to actually watch out for the integration of both of them. We need the synergy, not just the balance. So ultimately, lines and circles need to come together. And if the line actually penetrates the circle and the circle receives the line, then circle penetrated by the line actually becomes the spiral. So as Dr. Marc said so beautifully, our lives are circles yearning to become a spiral. So the line and circle and spiral teaching comes from deep inside the lineage and goes back to Isaac Luria. And Marc has been teaching about it for ages. And so I just want to point you again to one of those places, which was at Mystery School 2015. And we actually have this beautiful course online. It's called The Evolution of Love, which you can actually access as a One Mountain member. So if you're a member, I encourage you to take that course. And if you're not yet a member, I really urge you to become a member. Really make this your own. This is our revolution. So join us. And as Jacqueline Lilith already shared, there is a new course and a new book coming out as well. So we are circling. We're circling around an issue. We're circling around something beautiful. We're circling around our wounds, our shadows. And each time we get to a crossroad, we need to decide on a new direction. And sometimes we just take a wrong turn that is not really in tune with our life's direction. And then our inner navigation system goes like recalculating route. I think that's what it says in English. And sure enough, we find ourselves in the next turn of the circle again, circling around, circling around, circling around. And of course, every detour is part of our destination. It's not a bug, it's a feature, as Dr. Marc likes to say. But then at some point, we need to break through and get to the next level. And that's actually when the circle becomes a spiral. And in that integration, that's what transformation is. That's what healing is. That's what development is. That's what we are actually yearning for. And we will talk about that more in depth later. Just one other example of the line and circle integration. I mean, why are we all here? There's, of course, the teaching, the Dharma, the philosophy, which has a kind of line quality. It penetrates reality to make sense of it. And we use our body, mind, souls to actually penetrate the Dharma. And it asks us to practice it in our lives, as David and Claire have pointed out so beautifully last week. And that means we are actually penetrated by the Dharma and allow it to then be expressed through us. But then there's also the community as a circle quality. And that's very alluring too. And as Jacqueline referred to so beautifully, it has this holding quality of a container. And for me, these two elements coming together here is what really allured me to this community and these teachings. I probably wouldn't be here if one of these were missing. Just to give you an example of this. When we come together for our annual gathering in Vermont, and we just go out together, even without Marc or sometimes with him, people just feel the energy of our group and they feel attracted to it. They want to come closer and they even tell us. So last year, for example, we were in a restaurant, one of these loud, noisy places with all of us on a big table. So really nothing special, but we were together. And that is all that mattered to us. So we were just enjoying each other's company. And if you know us a little bit, then you know that we are literally in love with each other. And so at some point, one of the waitresses came over and asked us, who are you guys? You seem to be this international group, and it seems like you really love each other. We so rarely ever see that here. And I said to her, and it was the time the 3rd episode of Guardians of the Galaxy had just come out. And so I said, like, you know, we are the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I laughed at myself and thought she would laugh as well. But she turned to me and she said, like, very seriously, yes, you are. I can really see that. So, oh my God. And I hadn't even said anything about what we were doing. I hadn't talked about the teachings at all, or opened, but that little exchange, it opened the space for a real conversation, at least for that moment. So that's really the power of the circle of community, and especially when it integrates with a line energy, so it becomes a true unique self symphony. So maybe take a moment to reflect. What is it that brought you here? Is it the Dharma, the teachings, the philosophy, the sense making? And if so, what is it specifically that attracted you? Or is it the quality of community? Or most probably some version of both? What have you found here? What's most important for you? And what are you still looking for? Where would you like us to deepen? Maybe write it into the chat right now, or maybe you reflect on it a little more and write us an email about it. We would really love to hear from you. And so now I turned my word to Jacqueline Lilith, who will tell us a bit about her journey and how lines and circles appear in her life and how they have synergized for her into a spiral.
Oh, Kerstin, thank you so much. I really smiled to myself when you recounted the Guardians of the Galaxy story. I can deeply remember us being full of Eros and how we actually started dancing in this restaurant where people didn't usually dance, and how people were alert to join us. I mean, it was such a special and powerful moment. One in which I personally, again, realized the power of living as Eros, as a unique self-symphony. So thank you so much for that, Kerstin, Zohar, Rachel. And now for my personal story. I think I'd like to start by saying that this has been a really, really interesting and informative journey for me, crafting this one mountain with Kerstin, beloved Kerstin Zohar Rachel. And I had probably within the last year or so worked out what my unique transformation was, my unique tikkun, what was mine to heal, to transform during this lifetime. But to be honest, it's only through preparing for this broadcast today that I have realized just how many times this particular set of dynamics has shown up in my life, and how these dynamics need to be faced in every aspect of my life, which isn't really surprising, but it was, you know, maybe I'm a bit slow. It was surprising to me. So to take you back to the beginning, I grew up with parents who loved me and cared about me. And I want to make that point absolutely clear. And yet, of course, there were issues. There are always issues. And these weren't flaws. They weren't bugs in the system. They were and are an intrinsic part of life. And I was able to see this firstly when writing my sacred autobiography, which is something beloved Kerstin has already referred to, where we mythologize rather than pathologize. And then I was able to see it again a tad more clearly preparing this broadcast today, that this was actually reality calling me into greatness, To sort of tell you a little bit more, my parents were very young. I was their first child, and my father worked away, coming home for a few days every couple of weeks. My mum held me and she poured her love into me. I was her circle, her radiant object, radiance being a circle quality, which was absolutely fine when I was a baby. I mean, I don't remember, but I can imagine just basking in this total outpouring of love that came my way. But later, she was unable to allow me to grow up in the line sense of growing up, to become autonomous in order to then dance between autonomy and communion, which is what we're aiming to do later in our lives. And my mum was unable to do this because for her, I was still a part of her. She was incredibly impacted by my feelings, my emotions, and she responded to them really as if they were her own. And I felt suffocated and consumed, both shadow qualities of the circle, as actually there was no clear distinction between us. So what happened was I withdrew into my own circle. I mothered myself and I defended the circle. Its boundaries hardened and my mum became other outside the circle. I found it a safe, but to be honest, a very lonely place to be. And then my father, when he came home for a few days every now and then, everything changed. My mum was his radiant object, and I was put outside the circle. His line, I felt, was aggressive, and I also felt dominated. And because I could only see the shadow qualities of the line, that was mostly what I saw, I actually demonized the line. I cut myself off from its power, my own thrust. And I actually grew up not knowing the joys of self-discipline or the absolute correctness of hierarchy, all line qualities. This is like an overview. Obviously, there were times when I did things differently, but this is an overview of how things really were underneath. I grew up, with little drive, little sense of direction. And although I craved intimacy, which, as I said just now, is the dance between autonomy and communion, I actually had no idea how to achieve it. So what happened was I dipped into many circles, hastily retreating when something was demanded of me that meant engaging the line. Although, of course, at that time I had no words for what was happening. I just knew things got terribly uncomfortable. I felt I couldn't possibly be there and I had to leave. For example, as a teenager, I dropped out of education, believing that I was actually being told what to think. I settled for less than I was capable of, failing to integrate drive and determination, the line, to really go for it, but perhaps in another way. And as life progressed, I felt this yearning. I actually began to want more than just receiving, a shadow quality of the circle. I mean, the circle receives, but the circle receives dynamically from a place of empowerment. And again, I had no concept of how to do this. And looking back now, what strikes me is that actually I really just expected life to provide. I waited for something to happen. I was not particularly proactive. I was not forward facing, which is another line quality. Really makes me laugh. Not surprisingly, I wondered what life was all about. Why was I here? What's the point? And to be honest, part of me loved being in the circle, and I still do. I plumbed its depths and I connected deeply with the divine, what we call the infinite intimate. Just put my teeth in a minute. But the overall trajectory of my life was actually really not going anywhere. Yes, I had studied and gained further qualifications. And yes, I worked. Yes, I was in relationships. But my life was actually a poor reflection of what it actually could be. And the way I see it now is that I was circling without any clear direction or any sustained thrust. And my first real breakthrough came, I would say, at the age of 50, when I was ordained as an interfaith minister and made the decision to step into the fullness of my name, Jacqueline. Until that time, I'd always been known as Jackie, but I knew that I actually wanted to incarnate fully. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew there was a holding back. And that I now realize was the beginning of my sustained journey to engage the line, the journey of my unique transformation, which really can be summed up as making the journey to, number one, I learned this from Marc, number one, cultivating discernment, which is a line quality, both in finding a discerning trust of the line and through discerning what to allow to penetrate the circle. And then two, allowing myself to be completely penetrated by another, by life itself, by whatever I discern is appropriate. And three, to also engage and actualize the line as it lives within me uniquely. So these three things together evolve the line and circle into the spiral. And in that process, not only, as I think I said earlier, am I transformed, but so is the other. There is a unique emergent, and actually so is reality itself. And it's only since studying with Marc that I've become fully aware of these dynamics. It's given me a framework to work from. And as David said, it's such a helpful framework. It's really opened my eyes and given me a completely different way to go forward. And I'd just like to share something quite intimate with you. And that is that Marc and I now have the most beautiful and potent relationship. We rest in each other. We have the joy of getting things done, organizing and rearranging so we know where things are. And in this joy, we rest in the line together. The process of doing is a place we rest. We rest in our becoming, but we also rest paradoxically in the circle, in the depth of our home, trusting that we always show up for each other with goddess grace, with some level of dignity, grace, love, depth, and goodness. The steadiness of our line is actually a circle that embraces. We are in a constant flow of line, which is constantly held in this circle. Our line is steady and our circle is steady. And when these two qualities come together and become the spiral, something happens, something unfolds, something deepens. So what I'm saying actually is that within the think tank, here at the center, we don't just talk about the Dharma, we live the Dharma, we become the Dharma. We're not separate from it. We actually are a unique self-symphony. We are, in the way I've just described, we are many combinations and permutations of relationship. And Marc models all this so well for us constantly. So thank you for listening to my sharing of my journey. And now I turn the word back to you, beloved Kerstin Zohar Rachel, for you to share your personal story.
Wow, thank you so much, Jacqueline, Lilith, my beloved Dharma sister. That was so gorgeous. And I can so see that in you. I mean, you really are that quality of depth and holding and devotion, I think. And you embody that quality of the circle so well, but not from a place of weakness, but really from a place of strength that comes from the integration of lines and circles, really. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And if any of you has any questions about the teachings or about both of our journeys, please write them in the chat and we will come back to that later. So for me, my unique point of transformation is really the encounter with what the lineage calls the void. So the void is this idea in cosmoerotic humanism, and going back to the lineage of Solomon, that in order for creation to exist, God had to literally step back to contract. It's called the divine contraction, Tsimtsum, where God stepped back to make space for creation. And in that making space, there was this void created. And one of the lineage masters, Nachman of Breslov, taught that the empty void is the unpenetrated circle. So there was this space created where there is no God. And of course, paradoxically, all that space would then be penetrated by God and filled with creation, and every piece of creation would be filled with God again. So hold that paradox with me for a moment. It's like some of us are literally born to face that void, and seemingly I'm one of them. And even though everyone has probably their version of how the void shows up in our lives, as Marc likes to say, life is what we do with our emptiness. I think that it is not something everybody has to do in the deepest sense of it, like I had to do it. But for me, it is the issue that I was born to face. It was put so central into my life, and transforming that in myself is something I have to do, not just for myself, but actually for the greater whole. So one of the ways that showed up for me was that I somehow came into this life with this deep yearning for wholeness, yearning for oneness. And it was like a physical pain, really. It was like something tearing me apart, literally. And it felt like a yearning that could never, ever be fulfilled. One of my earlier spiritual teachers said to me, you have this primal scream in you for unity, for union. So that's one way it showed up. Another way was by me never really feeling welcome. In terms of community, I always felt left out, not belonging. And I was always looking for something, thinking that this is not really my place. I need to find my place somewhere, but not here. And even if I felt this may be my place, there was still doubt. So there was always this huge but. I think I am in the right place, but... And then I was actually waking up almost every night with this physical sensation of literally falling into a void, falling into a black hole, as I used to call it, falling into this bottomless pit, this fear of nothingness. Not no thingness in the spiritual sense, but literally nothingness. There's nothing there. This is just a meaningless cosmos. And I may have experiences of the most exquisite love, the most exquisite states of enlightenment, but ultimately, that's just another brain state that's going to pass. And ultimately, we're all going to die. We're all going to disappear into that bottomless pit. Deal with it. So that was the voice of my void, of my fear. And I could tell you a lot of places how this entered me in this lifetime, like when my grandma died, when I was just turning 5, and we had been very close, and it was really a shock for me, or when I was bullied at school. So those are all valid and need to be addressed, and I actually addressed them all on a psychological level. I also worked a lot in terms of spirituality, really finding those state experiences of oneness. And you would think that would somehow dissolve it, but it didn't. So I was still in it when I met Dr. Marc Gafni in 2011, and I was very grateful for his teachings on the void, and especially of him telling me, hey, actually, this is not by accident that you're dealing with it, but it's something very unique for you, and you have this obligation and also the capacity to really enter the void and transform that fear. Now, that being said, I was still struggling with it, because basically, how can you enter the void, enter that place, when there's this deep, deep distrust of reality? I remember actually an outrageous love letter I wrote once in the middle of the night saying, I so want to trust, but I don't know how. And I remember having a teacher at school, a teacher in training actually, when I was 18 or so, and it was religious studies. And I actually loved his classes because he was really engaging deep texts with us, which I like. And I could really have a conversation with him, which I rarely ever found at school. But then he said something that really shocked me. He said, there is a place where we simply don't know. We don't know if God is real. We don't know if there's anything besides this physical, materialist reality. And that is, he said, where we Christians choose to believe. And I now understand that's, of course, the postmodern move that has become so obvious these days. But at that point, at age 18, I was really shocked. I was like, oh, so if I can choose to believe that, I can also choose not to believe that. Why should I believe that if you can't even tell me it's real? I want to know that love is real. I want to know that God is real. As a matter of fact, I need to know that God is real. And I didn't say that, of course. It was just too terrifying to even think, let alone talk about that. But that was basically the sensation of all my life. How do I know that God is real? And real with a capital R, ontology, for realsies, as Dr. Marc likes to say. Is there something besides just this cosmic oops that actually I can trust in? So that was my inquiry for my whole life. And it is only now, with this new teaching of Dr. Marc Gafni, that value is real, that this is actually changing for me. Of course, that teaching has been in the background for ages, and there are lots of ways that Marc actually talked about that. But it has become so much clearer this last year, also with the book, First Principles and First Values, coming out. And if you don't have it yet, I really urge you to get it. And also the last couple of months and weeks, where I am so blessed to actually be in the process of editing these new pieces about value is real. And in a sense, value is another word for the ultimate real. It's another word for God. So my life question was, is there something real that I can trust in? And now I finally got an answer. And it's somehow funny when you know, I've done so much work before all that, and it's like when there's one piece missing, you just, the pieces kind of fall into place. But now with this new understanding entering me, somehow the puzzle piece was complete, and now the pieces are actually falling into place. And with these teachings comes, of course, a set of practices. So first of all, I can find value in myself. I can find love. And yes, when I'm in that experience, it feels damn real. So that's the first thing. But as I said before, it wasn't enough for me. So now I can actually go back and trace it back, and I can literally see it everywhere. I can feel it in my body as my cells are literally having a conversation. They are making love. I can see even quarks making love and coming together, forming a proton or a neutron, and then protons and neutrons coming together, and so forth, all the way up to me. And that in the Dharma is not just a mythopoetic idea, but with the interior science equations that Dr. Marc has formulated, we can see that this is literally, scientifically, what is going on. And as someone who has studied some physics at the university, as one of the places I was looking for my place, I don't use that word lightly. I can go all the way up and all the way down the evolutionary chain and see that the universe is reaching for something. It's reaching for more and more value, more and more love, more and more eros, more and more realness. And that's actually true. And then, of course, my inner skeptic says, that's still just the manifest universe. And yes, there's this becoming into it, and I'm part of that. So great, I love that. But then why is it even there in the first place? So then I listened to this dialogue between Dr. Marc Gafni, Dr. Zach Stein, and Ken Wilber, and they talked about this idea that value is folded into cosmos as this involutionary given. So spirit enfolded into soul, and soul into mind, and mind into body, and body enfolded into matter. So that's involution. And that's then the ground of being, the field of value, from which then evolution can start. And all of reality starts to unfold. So there is the field of value, and it is both. It's the ground I can stand on, and it's reaching for ever more value. It's evolving. And now it's almost like this bottomless pit finally got a bottom. And that is the bottom I can actually stand on. And that is not just a cognitive realization. It's actually an embodied sensation. I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in my soul. And then I can see, oh, I'm uniquely participating in that field of value. I'm a unique expression of it. And I have this obligation to express it uniquely. And so do you. And so I encourage you to look deeply into your own life. What is your unique transformation? What is your unique expression of value? Your unique integration of lines and circles? What is yours to do uniquely? And that is actually what makes all these teachings so, so personal. So now let's see if you all have any questions for us. And if there are no questions, that's also totally perfect. We can also just move on to the next piece. Maybe just offering a brief reflection. Okay. Reading the chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Beautiful. Jacqueline, you want to add something maybe from?
Oh, just that I was blown away by your sharing, Kerstin, to your vulnerability, the incredible journey you've been on. It touched me very, very, very deeply. So just a huge thank you for sharing that. And I celebrate with you that actually you've made some sort of breakthrough, and that is so worth celebrating. An inspiration to all of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Okay.
Maybe just to add one sentence, maybe it's like, I know, there has been this shift a couple of weeks ago, actually, and in me, and I know many of you have actually noticed that shift in me, and it's like, so this is very fresh, actually. It's very, very deep in my life right now.
There's 2 questions in the chat box for you.
Okay, so translation of obligation and capacity in terms of spirituality and quantum physics language. Whoa.
Big one, Kerstin.
Big one.
Question.
Big one. So I don't know exactly if I'm getting the question right, but I mentioned obligation. So, like actually having this obligation to enter the unique transformation. And it's a hard word. I get that. But it's also something, it's really, there is a sense of a possibility of actually failing. It's like when we don't really get to our unique transformation, it's like we really missed the mark. I think that is really the ultimate sin, the ultimate failure, whatever it is. And so we can circle, and circling around is part of the journey, and it's important, but at some point we really need to. It's our obligation. It's actually something we need to engage. And I mean, Dr. Marc has this beautiful teaching, of course, about obligation, what it really means in terms of engaging like our unique self-obligation. And that is basically, there is a need in reality, and I have the capacity to engage the need, and then I actually have the obligation to and I'm the only person who can do that. And that's actually what our unique tikkun is all about. So that is maybe that part of the question. And quantum physics language, I mean, we don't want to go too deeply into that, because it's we can go off into some new age formulations of that, which we don't want to do. But so I'll leave it at that for now. Anything you want to add?
Well, I'd just like to say that I feel that was a very full answer, Kerstin. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I think there was one more question from Krista.
Terry, from Terry. What do you do when you fall off? You mean fall off into the void? Or I'm not exactly sure I get the question, but so what I was talking about is really this sensation, and it's literally like a physical sensation. When I woke up like in the middle of the night, and I had this sensation of really falling. It's like falling, and like you wake up and like your whole body is in shock because you just fell, and then of course the fear set in and kind of like pulled me out, but then I couldn't sleep anymore. And now I see, actually, once I realized the shift in me, I had another couple of times when it actually occurred again. And then I was actually able to face it. I was able to look into it, and I said, like, I trust the universe. I trust this place. I trust God. I trust there is something I can actually trust. So I'm not sure if that was the correct answer to your question, but it's what I can give you right now.
Thank you. And I can see there was one more question from Krista. And her question is, how do you recommend us integrating this wisdom in our lives? Well, I would suggest you actually follow the journey that we've outlined. And one of the really good ways of doing this is taking the course, the Evolutionary Love course that Krista's going to be talking about more fully in a minute, actually going through the lessons and integrating the practices, practicing, looking, where am I getting stuck? Where am I circling? What potential am I not fulfilling? And it's only really through identifying these things that we can come out the other side, if you like, that we can begin to bring all these aspects of ourselves together so that there is a healing, a transformation that occurs. There's something greater that can evolve.
Let's actually enter prayer now. And because that's actually also another thing you can do. It's like actually engaging in prayer. And we have this beautiful way of praying together. And yes, Talia, Krista is going to talk more about the course. And so today we want to enter prayer actually a little differently. And some of you may be aware that we actually pray together as a community every day. And maybe someone can put the times and the links for prayer into the chat box. So we would love to actually have you there if you feel called. And in that prayer, we engage in the prayer, in the practice of prayer from the Wisdom of Solomon lineage. And sometimes Marc is there in person, and sometimes we use a recording with him. But there's always a section that is the setting of intention. And there are actually several ways we can enter prayer through multiple different intentions. So One is we can enter a prayer as a friend. We talk to God as our friend. Please, God, I know that you know all the ways I've messed up again this week, and I know you still love me, and it is so great to be able to talk to you about everything. So that's one way of entering prayer. Two, we can enter prayer as the subject to a king. So I am standing before the king, the queen, before royalty, and I'm in awe, in wonder, in radical amazement, and I ask for everything. I mean, God is so much larger than me. It's the infinite intimate, and I can ask her for everything. Three, I can come to prayer as the lover. That's really the Song of Solomon. And as the lover, I engage in direct zivug, direct erotic union with she. And I am making love. Oh my God. Four, and this is really what we are talking about here right now, I come to prayer as the lover who places his or her attention on the divine, or more precisely on the he and she of the divine, on the line and circle of the divine. And I am the arouser of divine union, of Eros Cosmos. I bring line and circle together in myself. I bring all my split of parts into union. I bring everything back to center, and I'm doing what we call the Shem Yehud Kutsha Birechu Ushechinte, for the sake of the union of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the divine line and the divine circle. And so I am the arouser, I am the causer of union, which I can only cause that union from within, because I participate in the field of value uniquely. And that's actually the ultimate place of power. And finally, I can come to prayer as part of the divine, seeking to realize my true nature. And prayer becomes the place where I realize the truth of I'm always already on the inside of God's face. So those are the 5 primary intentions. And what they all share in common is that there's no one in the middle. It's a direct conversation. There's nothing in between me and my beloved, me and the king, me and my God self. And between the Shem Yehud Kutsha Birechu Ushechinte, when I place my attention on the line and the circle for the sake of the whole, there's nothing in between. And that's actually the radical nature of prayer. Prayer is the ultimate democratization. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, beloved Jacqueline, to take us in even more deeply.
Thank you so much, Kerstin. Thank you. So that was absolutely gorgeous. And it was just one piece that I would like to add. And that is to say that in addition to what you've already said so beautifully, as the mystics have known, when we pray to God and we ask God to hold and to heal our holy and broken hallelujah, actually God is also praying to us. In this divine plea, God is saying, I need you. I need your service. Yet until now, we weren't actually capable of hearing God's prayer because we hadn't yet reached the stage of conscious development where we awakened as the evolutionary spiral, as Homo Amor. But now that we've crossed that evolutionary threshold, we only need to quiet our minds, our hearts, and our bodies to hear the eternal and divine whisper, I need you. I can't do this without you. In this divine plea is an invitation for an erotic merger of our evolutionary unique self which is the full integration of our lines and circles with all of reality. And it begins with devotion. We ask the question, what is needed from me within my circle of intimacy and influence? We listen for a response, but not from ego, which often tells us what would serve its needs, and not the needs of reality. What is needed does not always mean giving our unique gift or our unique talents and doing it without sacrifice. Instead, we actually need to listen for what is needed in the bigger picture and be aroused to devotion for that. Only then will we awaken to the radical desire to become love in action and to answer God's prayer of, I need you. So Krista is now going to take us into a beautiful chant from community prayer, and this chant, which some of you know already, is Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi, and this actually means thank you God for creating a pure soul in me. And this is actually what we might call first innocence. And the invitation as we pray together, and I invite you to write your prayers in the chat box, is to play for clarity on, or maybe assistance with, the next step of your journey of transformation, the evolution from first innocence to second innocence. And I also invite us to hold within our prayers beloved Suzanne, a member of this community, and her husband Gerard, who yesterday suffered a cardiac arrest. So please put your prayers in the chat box as Krista chants, and we can chant with her if you know the words. The words are in the chat box already. Elohai Neshama. Over to you, Krista.
Thank you. Elohai neshama shenatatavi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatatavi tehorahi. Elohai neshama Shenatatavi Tehora Tehorai. Elohai Neshama Shenatatavi Tehorai. Elohai Neshama Shenatatavi Tehorai. Elohai Neshama Shenatatavi Tehora Tehorai. Elohai Neshama Shenatatavi Tehorai. Elohai Neshama Shenatatavi Tehorai. Elohai Neshama Shenatatavi Tehora Tehorai. Elohai Neshama Shenatatavi Tehorai. Elohai Neshama Shenatatavi Tehorai. Elohai Neshama shenetatabi tehora tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehora tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehora tehorabi Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehora tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehorai Elohai neshama shenetatabi tehora tehorai
Feeling that so deeply. And just looking at some of the prayers in the chat box. From David, I pray for the trust and confidence to take my unique risk and for all those who hesitate to take theirs. Kerstin says, praying for Gerard and Suzanne. Yes, indeed, praying for Gerard and Suzanne. Brent, Abba, beloved Om, Almighty Ahad, O source of our being, beloved Om, almighty unity, purify and revivify us and heal our bodies, hearts, and earth, here, now. Talia, for peace and healing in her heart, in our world. Kerstin, praying to ever deepening into the next stage of my emergence into this second innocence. Talia, for remembering our heart's purity and goodness. And I'm just looking through a few more. Yes, 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 yes. Suzette, deepest prayer for Suzanne and all that are facing such life-altering events. May she help us all better understand the preciousness of each moment. David, praying for Gaza, Israel, Ukraine, Russia, all the war zones, civil wars, that peace may be found even in the most violent places. And there are many, 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 many more prayers. So thank you all so much. Thank you for staying over time. I know we've run over. It's easy to do that apparently. And just thank you for staying with us. Thank you for holding Kerstin and I in your love as we stood in front of you and we actually gave our all this one mountain. So a big, big thanks to everybody. And I turn my word to Krista to close. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Incredible. Holy sacred journey. We can feel the Dharma, the new story of cosmo-erotic humanism as articulated by Dr. Marc Gafni and so many other incredible people. Here we can feel it vibrating in every cell of our being. It's just so yummy. When it comes alive in these personal stories, how you, Jacqueline and Kerstin, have shared and poured your heart out, all the depth, all the pain, all the struggle, all the becoming, all the transformation, and all of this is happening in this field of Eros, this field of value that each and every one of us here gets to participate in. How does it get any better than that? I do not know.